right, guys, we are going to go through our review quickly. I have the answers all filled out, but I kind of wanted to scroll through so you can double check your answers, or if you missed any questions on your review before you submitted it, or you want to go back and fix your review and resubmit it, you can do that. That way you have the correct answers and you can study from that and make sure you are successful for our quiz next week. So section 2.3 goes over microscopes and how they are set up, and kind of talking about cells and how they were discovered. We also covered the cell theory as well. So our first question was define cell. Then what is a microscope? How does the invention of the microscope contribute to knowledge about living things? Who were the first two inventors of the microscope and which one did they invent? So that was Robert Hooke, and he created this compound microscope setup which uses lenses, and you can view the image larger. And then Anton van Leeuwenhoek created just a simple microscope. Robert Hooke was the one that looked at cork cells and plant cells and saw that they had like those each individual little rooms and sections. And then Anton van Leeuwenhoek was looking at bacteria and like teeth scrapings, and saw cells moving around and called them animalia because that's who discovered like those animal cells and how they move around and function. Then when we get into the cell theory a little bit, we get into other scientists. Matthias Schleiden stated that all plants are made of cells based on his discoveries and discoveries from scientists before him. Theodor Schwann then discovered that all animals are made of cells, and based on his discovery and that of Matthias Schleiden, Theodor Schwann said that all living things then are made of cells. Then based on those contributions, Rudolf Virchow took that information and then also came up with the understanding that all cells come from other living cells. And this was important during that time because spontaneous generation was around, and that was that theory that said living things can come from something that's non-living and it can kind of just appear. So Virchow's proposal that all cells come from other living cells was big because it disproved that spontaneous generation and showed that living things have to come from other living things. So then question 8 is important. You guys want to try to remember what these 3 statements are for the cell theory. It will be on your quiz. So that is all living things are made of cells. So you, me, animals, plants, anything that's living is made up of cells. We also understand that cells are the basic unit of structure and function in living things. So that's what we start with. And then they combine and build, and that's when we get our tissues and organ systems and so on. And then the other statement is all cells are produced from other cells. Okay, then we get into a couple other definitions. Magnification, how does a microscope produce that magnified image? Resolution, and then even what an electron microscope does. So you want to make sure that you do understand the difference between magnification and resolution. Remember, magnification is the ability to make things look larger. Resolution is the ability to distinguish each individual part then that you are looking at. So through section 2.3, we cover that. Then section 2.4 gets into our specific organelles and those structures. So section 2.4, defining an organelle, remembering those are even smaller structures within the cell that perform specific functions to help the cell function. Okay, then you go through the cell wall, what it's made up of, the cell membrane, What does the nucleus do? The three parts of the nucleus, the chromatin, which is inside the nucleus containing that genetic material or the DNA, so that the cell can then read those instructions and know what it's supposed to do. Remember, the nucleolus makes ribosomes. The cytoplasm is just kind of there holding everything together. The mitochondria is that powerhouse, and the mitochondria creates the energy for the cell. People seem to get the mitochondria and the nucleus confused. So just remember that the nucleus is directing the cell on what it's supposed to do. The mitochondria is providing the energy for the cell to function. Then endoplasmic reticulum is just kind of a passageway. Ribosomes produce proteins. The Golgi body is kind of like a shipment area. So it receives proteins and materials, and then it packages them and sends them to where they need to go. Chloroplasts are in plants. And they capture the energy from the sun and then make food for the plant. Pigment in chloroplasts is chlorophyll, and that's what makes them green. Then vacuoles are just those storage areas. The difference for vacuoles between plants and animals, make sure you remember that plants have one large vacuole, and it holds mainly water for the plant. And then animal cells have smaller vacuoles, and they usually have more of them. And they're just kind of holding areas as well, but they store like food or extra materials the cell might need. Lysosomes are found in mainly animal cells, and then they are kind of like the cleanup crew for your cell. So they break down food pieces, they break down like old cell parts and kind of clean them up and decompose them. Then when we get into the final areas, remember a tissue is when similar cells combine to form that tissue. An organ is when different types of tissue combine and create that organ. And then an organ system is where you have a group of organs that then produce or perform a major function. So like our breathing, respiratory system, our digestive system, things like that. Then the last question was actually your warm-up today. So why are cells vital to living organisms? If you've seen this question on your warm-up, you now see it on the review. It's going to be on your test. So make sure you have an understanding of this question. They can vary. There's really no right or wrong answer as long as you can kind of explain, how cells are that building block for us. They combine to form, tissues and organs, and then those systems that allow our bodies to function. Cells function to produce certain materials, or, they divide and multiply so that we can have our genetics and our structure for organisms as well. I did want to say one other question that's not on your review, but you will see on your test that you can make sure you take this information from is how plant and animal cells are different. So make sure you remember and have that understanding that plant cells, have those chloroplasts. Plant cells have different vacuoles. Or that animal cells have lysosomes and plant cells don't. And then the other key structure is that plant cells have that cell wall as well. So make sure you have an understanding and you can think of some sort of answer and explanation for how plant and animal cells are different. Otherwise, I'm going to post this for you guys. If you have any questions, please let me know. Make sure you're finishing up your review and you can play the review game. And then our quiz is going to be next week. Have a good day, guys.